Monsieur Wave.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta do de. Luta mënuloo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello?
Bësal mu fay.
What?
Bësal mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave acts in Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills, and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave, Bësal mu fine. Wave, your money is yours.
Jar Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jar Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
In the Gambia, we all move to different paces. Time is money, convenience is power, and now both are in your hands. No more long lines, no more late payments, no more missed chances, not anymore. Because now the Gambia has its own super app, Zap. One app, one tap, endless convenience. Send money instantly, pay your bills in seconds, shop without borders, pay your rides, order your meal, buy your ticket, deposit and withdraw money for absolutely free. No extra charges, no hidden fees, only on Zap Super App. This is not just convenience. This is confidence. This is the future in your hands. And the best part, Zap is born right here. Built for us, designed for every Gambian home, every Gambian dream. So don't wait in the past. Step into the future. Download Zap today on App Store and Play Store and enjoy endless free services. Call us today on our toll-free number 1666 or on 260-0001. Zap. All in one. All for you. Tap in. Zap in.
Okay, we are with Ousainou Bobb on Monday, the 1st of December 2025. It's coffee time with Peter Gomez, and corruption is the subject of our conversation. So what role do institutions like the Office of the Auditor General, the National Assembly, even the judiciary and the Inspector General of Police play in either curbing or enabling corruption in this country?
Right. So institutions, the people that work in those institutions, they come from within our ranks. They come from our homes. They come from our societies. I will keep dragging you back into the social fabric because I want people to understand that this is a problem that only us can solve. And then the biggest accountability measure that any country would have would be the citizens themselves, to create that accountability. And we've done series of case studies on that, which I will come on to later. Right. Let's look at attire. Now, it has a cultural significance. A very good cultural significance. It foster brotherlyhood. It fostered, pleasantry and all those things. So ma ñëwee seet si la, ma jógee Angleterre, ma egati xaalis jola, ne la lii attire, jëndal attire. Boo did something good for me, ma jox ko ne ko jëndal attire. It's a cultural thing. It's gift giving. Again, léegi nga tase traffic official bi ci tali bi, mi ne la naanaaguma attire. So automatically, you don't connect. You are not connecting the dots. This very notion of nanaguma attire constitutes a bribery, because again, language is very important. The language that we use to transact our business would determine if this should be accepted morally or if this should be rejected. Now, if Nan attire or Jomhamanan attire is accepted culturally, so then you find yourself giving out bribe money without even realizing that this is actually bribe money. Now, if a police officer stops you on the road and said to you, bribe me $50, automatically that has a negative connotation in your thinking. And then you might repel, why should I bribe you? But if they said, Nanaguma attire, then it has you receive the message with a less abrasiveness because it's cultural. Okay? Now, let's come to the institutions. How do the government police corruption? I think it might be late for this government because the perception is really high.
Well, that's why I'm not saying central government. I'm talking about, supposedly, institutions that are meant to be independent,
right,
like the National Audit Office, the judiciary, even the office of the Inspector General of Police, even though he or she is appointed by the head of state.
Right. So we go back to the formula.
The National Assembly.
Exactly. So corruption, monopoly plus discretion minus accountability. So take away the monopoly from these institutions and the discretions, make it available publicly, then you have public accountability in place because accountability increases. And these are some of the most effective anti-corruption measures globally.
How do we do that with the National Audit Office, for instance?
Right.
So the National Audit Office goes in there, audits, but its report is meant to be shared first with the National Assembly. Yes. The National Assembly is supposed to okay that report before it becomes public. And now, between the last two auditors general before the current one, we have had accusations of reports being leaked to the media before it's even discussed by the National Assembly, because I tried to interview a National Assembly member about a particular report, and what he said to me, this thing has not even come to the Parliament yet. For us, it does not exist. So, but it was in the, everywhere in the newspapers.
So to address this problem, Uncle Peter.
Yeah, I want, the principle of monopoly, how it, obtains in this case.
There shouldn't be any monopoly or discretion in governance, because the very idea of governance is to use public resources. And whenever you use public resources, then the information should be available publicly. Wherever public finances...
Should it be okay for the National Audit Office, once it finishes a report, even before it sends it to the National Assembly, to publicize what it has found?
Not even before that. If you look at the government institutions, we are giving them money through the appropriation bills, allocating monies to different ministries. Yes. This money should be public knowledge. I should be able to log into my good friend's ministry, Mr. Cisse, Doctor, and find out the allocation that he has received in 2024, 2025.
Unfortunately for him, he doesn't get that much money.
Yeah, but
his ministry doesn't get a lot of money.
Even if it's $5, I should be able to log into the Ministry of...
Even if it is $1.
Exactly, Ministry of Information, and understand that the allocated budget, these are the expenditures. This is where the money is going into. Because then, you've increased public perception. You see, I am not going to sit here and say, corruption is only an African issue. Well, no, it is not. It is a global issue.
Look at what's happening in Ukraine. Ukraine is not Africa.
Exactly. But what is dangerous about corruption is the perception. Because the higher the perception, the more people participate in corruption. Because it breaks intergroup trust. Like I gave you that analogy earlier. If I believe everyone is doing it, I am tempted to do it, because to me, it becomes an end of being like, if I do not do it, someone else is going to do it.
But that is a reality. If somebody makes you minister today, you live in a thatched house, and after 1 year, you're still living in that thatched house, what will everybody say? Why be like Ousainou Faida? That's what they will say.
Exactly. But again, we will come to the social aspect, like, the things that pushes the public official in the Gambian context to behave in such a way. But let's start with that before we come to the auditor. What Gambians should advocate is financial transparency. There shouldn't be any discretion in any of our ministries and public finances or public institutions. We're living in 2025. All of these line ministries and departments, they should have up-to-date website. When I was doing my research, the amount of time I've hit a government server in the Gambia and find 404 not available, and I'm like, okay, this is frustrating. But again, it starts from there. All ministries should be able to put online their finances and where those monies are being used. Now, if such a system was existing...
Somebody in government might be tempted to say, where has he seen a ministry, in what country, put all its financial details online?
Again, but...
Does it happen in the UK where you live?
If I go through my annual tax summary, through the HMRC app, the amount of tax I've paid, I will see how many pounds and spend have gone into defense, how many pounds and spends have gone into health, have gone into education and towards national debt services.
As long as you're a certified taxpayer, you will have access to that information.
Yeah, but like this is readily made available for you.
Okay.
But again, if I go into any department in the UK to find out where their budget is and how much money has been spent towards a certain aspect of their budget, the information is readily available because it helps increase the level of trust between the citizens and the government. Now, suppose we had a system like that, then we wouldn't have an Auditor General that is under so much pressure to publish, to publish the audit reports or to bring out their findings. Now we come to the National Assembly. Who are the people that we are electing to represent us? That should be the biggest question. Do they actually, well, I wouldn't want to go into that line to say they do not know why they're there or what they're doing, because it seems like they understand that they could get a lot of money by increasing their salaries annually. But again, what role are they playing as the third arm of government in holding the government accountable? If I were to actively engage in anti-corruption reform in the Gambia, Peter, I would rely more on the common citizen than on the institutions. Because the common citizens...
You're suggesting the institutions have failed the people.
But well, we can shape the way the institutions work.
Do you think the institutions have failed the people?
Definitely, yes. Right.
That's a shame.
The institutions have definitely failed the people. Even though I want to be a very civilized politician without castigating and stuff, but the institutions have failed.
I think you're doing well in that regard.
Let's look at, I'll give you a scenario. In China, in 2012, there was a safety officer in one of the provinces called Shenzhen. His name was Yang Dakai. They call him online the Watch Brother or Brother Watch. So there was a fatal accident on the bridge that he supervised to build, and 39 people lost their life. So he went to that accident and someone took a picture of him wearing a very expensive watch and grinning over the camera.
Grinning?
Yes, with a smile. The picture went viral in China, and the citizens start digging into him, start reverse image searching him into various occasions, and within no time they were able to bring forward the amount of watch collections that he had and all those things. Now this is citizen action towards the government, and the government has to take so much action, like they have to take action based on so much pressure that they have to expel him and jail him for 14 years. Again, China, let's use it as an example because they had a similar culture with us before. And we did this case study where during their annual year, festive season, there was this tradition of giving out expensive whiskey. And the first thing the government did in fighting anti-corruption was to abolish the idea of gift giving. Now, have you read the case, court case of Dr. Banja, the former PS of Fisheries? One of the key lines of the defense was, actually, the monies that he has received from the Chinese was a gift. And there is no indication in our laws which punish gift giving. So you see the blurry line between actually gift giving and what constitutes a bribery. So these are the social nuances that we have to make sure Gambians to understand, and so that people can help us actually start holding these public officials
Should the National
accountable.
Assembly have seized on that to now bring in laws that address gift giving?
Well, they've just introduced the act of bribery. I think in 2023 was it introduced or something like that, to explicitly define what constitutes a bribery. But still now there are so many red, like blurry lines, gray areas that it becomes very difficult to understand. So the borough government, I've heard that they've instituted an anti-corruption agency, which is long overdue because the first bill was...
Well, the commissioners have been identified. We are yet to hear any swearing in and the actual commencement of work.
Right. Again, how do you establish a legitimate anti-corruption agency that has integrity and that has recognition, not only in the Gambia, but towards your partners also? Because corruption, the effects ripple across, not only internally, but also
commissioners
externally.
Will ultimately have to be approved by the National Assembly, and apparently they have been.
Again,
we're just waiting for their inauguration and the commencement of work.
How about they've started it this way? We are going to set up an anti-corruption agency. The civil service, the political actors, the various groups within the country come out, recommend people that you want to be in the anti-corruption agency. Those recommendations are sent to the National Assembly for selection, interview, processing, and then hiring. Now, I am not saying they are doing something wrong, but logic would determine that if the Ministry of Justice headhunt the people that they are going to appoint as commissioners.
No, they opened it up to application. So if Ous felt, well, he is qualified to serve on the Anti-Corruption Commission, he applied.
Again, the thing about working in anti-corruption, it's the autonomy, the independency from any external forces or any forces exerted on you.
So when you apply for a job, the person who gives you the job, you are obliged to them.
Yes. So you go through a process of selection by the government. So it's obviously whoever the government is going to send to the National Assembly. I'm not saying the person wouldn't have integrity, or I'm not saying the person wouldn't do what they are employed to do. But again,
they would be the person that meets their expectation.
Exactly. So the national
expectation is the qualifications required for the job.
Exactly. So what in this instant, the National Assembly is limited because you can only make rational choices based on the candidates that are presented to you. So if the minister decides to bring in 3 candidates and said these are the 3 people we've identified or 4 people we've identified to be employed as anti-corruption agency.
These are the only 3 people who applied.
Yes. So what would the National Assembly do? And we come back to the way Gambians come forth in our social relationships. We can be very, what is the adjective I want to use here? Our society can be very brutal in terms of the way we shun and punish people that do not fall within that conformity of our expectations. Okay, so there is the norm of reciprocity and there is the norm of obligations. Now, we all are crying there is nepotism. I understand that, but everyone whose family member has not been affected, they see it as a norm of obligations. Now, if Peter is made the Minister of Information, Peter's cousins are expected to work in the Ministry of Information, and that's the societal perception, and that's the norm that is being asserted on the public official that if you do not employ this particular person, then your also community, they can start shunning you. So if you live in a society or in a country like that, how do you help the public official become neutral and become more effective? Is to remove some of those pressures and expectations from him. So this is why APP Sobeya, we are advocating for digitalization, a central application system for all government public, for all public employments, Then you are removing the public official.
They will argue that they're gradually, getting to that.
But it's been 8 years now, isn't it?
9.
9 years now. But again,
I just announced that, on this day, 9 years ago, we went to the polls to vote, the dictator out.
Exactly.
And tomorrow would be the 9th year since the declaration of Adama Barrow as president. And a few days after that,
and the beauty about that, in relations to corruption, it's, we have the collective action problem in corruption. That if I knew you to a very personal level, there is an obligation or there is a form of social understanding between us. If I employ you and I am in these particular institutions, you are most likely going to stay silent or be in solidarity with me when I loot state coffers. Okay, so now, if you remove the public official from having the access to directly employ the relatives, the nephews, and all those things, and it goes through a very centralized hub where people will be employed based on experience, competency, and their ability to do the work. Now, it might take time to be able to understand.
Yeah, but just because you're a minister, does not mean that you can employ, your permanent secretary or your principal assistant secretary, not even your confidential secretary.
But is that the case in the Gambia?
Isn't that the case? I think that's the case. I mean, Dr. Cisse cannot employ his nephew, I hope, or niece. Doctor, can you?
Well, I'm sure my good friend will come here and respond tomorrow.
I mean, they're supposed to go through the public service system, apply for a job.
No.
Okay, you may have a situation where a nephew, I mean, either has started working in ministry before their uncle, becomes the minister or whatever.
Okay, so we haven't had a commission yet looking into the way government employed people, but we've at least witnessed something from the local council commissions, and we've seen how employment goes. See, the thing about the Gambia, we have very beautiful texts in terms of law, mostly translated from either the Commonwealth Good Governance Framework. If you look at our procurement laws from the World Bank, if you look at our anti-corruption laws from UNCAC and all those things, beautifully translated laws. But when it comes to Gambia, it goes through 4 stages. You have the translation part into our laws, you have the adaptation, you have the resistance. These are the nuances that goes underneath what is applicable, what is not applicable. Public officials start cherry picking what they want to apply. So eventually you end up having a hybrid system. And I would confidently say that our entire administration, it's run through hybridity. Now, you will understand that this is actually what is the law, but the norms in which they operate, it is completely different. So how do we counter that? So these are some of the things that we have to have a dialogue as a Gambian. It is not only about, I am going to come into power, like I had so many politicians said, I am going to come into power and X, Y, and Z, I am going to prosecute them, because it's like just plucking out a bad fruit, another fruit is going to sprung up again. We need to address some of these social issues, understand the society that we are living in, then create governance framework in which works amicably with some of these social norms that we have. Take out some of the pressures that the public officials would have to go through. There is a very, very strong norm of solidarity in this country. And it makes it very difficult to prosecute someone for corruption or other crimes. Now, let's suppose there is a director at a particular institution. He is good. And the neighbors would say he is good. Sumangente bi moma dimbale janga yi mom len de invite, so hospital bills nangam and nangam.
Tanga biri janga so ñu ngi am ci janga fi on the 27 bala nga def fi na la jox invitation.
Right. And then it creates that bond of solidarity. Now, you fire that public official. The first people to approach the executive would be the community members to plead on his behalf. To Nyom, they have not seen some of the, corruption have victims. And this is why in the global north, it is treated as a crime. Because the very act of corruption, it creates victims. The moment you take from public funds, from state coffers, you are denying service to some other institutions.
Okay. Well, I'd like us to go into greater detail about that. Before now, I ask you how APP Sobea intends to counter corruption in this country.